Hello, everyone. I'm Saleha, and this is Chai Chat and Community. Tonight, I'm chatting with Ameena Rahimi, this amazing young woman who is going to share her amazing story and journey with us. Hello, Ameena.
Hi, Salaha. How are you?
Good, thanks, and thank you for coming to this show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Before I start questioning you, can you tell us something about yourself, please?
So my name is Ameena Rahimi. I work as a lawyer with Springvale Monash Legal Service. I'm a generalist lawyer where I advise clients on a range of issues, such as family violence, intervention orders, infringements, employment law issues, um, debt matters, enforcement of court orders, tenancy issues, and any other issues which, as they come. Um, I am on 1 day a week. I work as a duty lawyer as part of my current role. I work as a duty lawyer in Dandenong Magistrates Court, and I am passionate um, about women's rights and women empowerment, and also I am keen defender of vulnerable members of the community against large insurance companies. Yes, and that's basically who I am and what
That's
I do.
great. Thank you. So, Amina, you were born in Afghanistan and then you moved to Australia, but in between, you've had a very interesting journey. Can you please tell us about that?
I was born in Afghanistan, and so at the time, so what happened was when I was born, after around that time, the war broke in the country. So there was a lot of unrest. There was a lot of unrest in the country. So like millions of Afghans, my parents moved to Pakistan, the neighboring country, and we were all settled in Pakistan. We were continuing our education, um, and we were living there. So my parents had migrated, and when the Taliban government was overthrown, my parents moved back to Afghanistan. But at the time, my father decided to send my elder sister and brother to Pakistan to pursue their education, to continue their education, because we were all studying there. And I was only 11 or 12 years old. I think I was 11 going to be 12. And my parents thought that I was too young to go, but I actually really insisted on them that I wanted to go and, continue my education. It was a very difficult decision for
I
them.
can
But
imagine. Yes.
yeah, sending an 11-year-old child. But they, thankfully, they did make the tough decision and sent me. So it was me, my sister, and my brother living with our relatives in Afghanistan, and I was in year six. I think I was in year six. I had
Wow.
just I had just finished year five, and I was in year six. I think it was a really tough time. It was really tough. I remember the first 2 years. I mean, just imagine an 11-year-old child or 12-year. That's the time when a child needs her
A
parents.
parent.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when you want to be with your parents and you want to be in a nourishing environment supported by your family. So first 2 years very difficult, took me 2 years to adjust there. I remember now that I reflect back and think about it, like how traumatic that was for me to go through that. But I had to make a decision. It was I had to make a decision whether to be with my parents and have no quality education, because even though Taliban had left, but the amount of damage that was left in the country, especially in the education system, it was profound. Like it took years for it, to reach up to a good standard. So, went to Pakistan, stayed there for 5 years. paid a very costly price of being away from the family. Stayed there for 5 years, and in end of 2007, my father was appointed as ambassador to South Korea. So he decided to move the whole family to South Korea. And he asked me whether I want to, stay in Pakistan and pursue my education, or whether to go with him. So when I assessed the situation, and I was like, Pakistan provided me better education than Afghanistan, and now Korea is providing me even further opportunities. So I went with him. So I completed my high school in South Korea in an American, in an American school. It was called Underwood International School. Sorry, no, it was called Korea Kent Foreign School. Underwood was the college where I went, and I studied one semester of biotechnology in Underwood International College, and then we came to Australia on a tour to visit my uncle who used to live here, who still lives here. So we were visiting my uncle. It was a 3-month holiday, our summer vacation. We were only a few weeks into our vacation when my father called us and said that his term has ended and he's going back to Afghanistan. Asked us that, he told us he will take everything, like, all our belongings from Korea to Afghanistan, and asked us to go to Afghanistan instead of Korea. So when he went there, he was targeted, and there was some unrest in the country. So that's when we decided to seek asylum here, and we stayed here. And that's when my journey began in a country where we had no intention of staying. Like, when you're not mentally ready for something, it just comes to you. So we stayed here, and then I started my law degree and went through a lot of hurdles in the way, which I will talk about later. And yeah, and then here I am.
Wow, I'm getting goose pimples listening to you, Ameena.
Yeah.
Wow, just
Yeah.
wow, wow.
Yeah,
Um,
I wouldn't, like, now that I think back, now that I have a child, I just, like, I salute my parents for letting me go. Like,
yes,
it was such a difficult decision, but my father he's very much into women empowerment and education, and he has done everything for us to be educated.
ah,
Yeah.
before I go further, here's a nice comment for you.
Oh, thank you,
Thank
thank
you. Thank you, Mukesh. Um, so, yes, as you said, you're a lawyer now, but you didn't really want to be a lawyer in the first place, did you?
No, actually, I wanted to become a pilot. I used to dream myself, in the skies. And as a child, that was my passion. Whoever would ask me, how they ask children, what do you want to
Yes,
become?
of course.
And I would say, I want to become a pilot. And when we were in Korea, actually, so in the American system of schooling, we would apply for university degrees. I think it was in junior. It's like 10 years now. I almost forgot. So we would apply in the junior year, which would be year 11. So I had applied for an aviation school in the United States, and I got selected. So when I told my parents that, here I am, and becoming a pilot, going to America, and achieving fulfilling my dream. So my
Yes,
parents, they were supportive. My dad said, we will support you. We have always supported you in whatever you have done. But they just flagged to me some of the cultural issues, that, there were some cultural issues, and, yeah, so then I had to give up on my decision. But now thinking about it retrospectively, so when it was a difficult decision to, when you have an offer and, to let it go. So I did think about a lot about it at the time. And for weeks, I was thinking in terms of what's my next, like, what's my other passion, what else I want to do. So one of the reasons I wanted to become a pilot was to like, to show to other women that, you're strong and you can do something, you're independent. And I thought that I can have another career with the same passion, and that was law. So, like, I do the same. Like, I'm empowering women, I'm encouraging them to fight for their rights, I'm campaigning for their, like, I'm speaking for their rights, and that gives me great joy. So, like, even though I didn't become a pilot, now that I think back, it's like, I have, like,
This
I'm
was your calling.
yeah, this is like, I find a lot of reward in this. Like, when I was studying law, I used to joke with my, friends. I would be like, if law is something edible, I would eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
You like it that much.
Yes, once I started studying it, I was like, I was very much into it, and I loved it, and I love it.
Thank you. Um, so you've already told us what you're doing now. Do you want to just elaborate on what exactly you're doing and how your degree has helped the community?
Um, yeah, so as I said, we are Springville Monash is a community legal service. So we provide free legal service to eligible people, for the vulnerable members of the community. And I'm so fortunate to be part of this organization. This is like, they're very inclusive, passionate, and supportive people that I have ever worked with. Everyone is determined to do everything to the best of their, capacity to the community. As I said earlier, my role is generalist lawyer, and I advise clients in family violence in the court, intervention orders, and all those sort of matters. And in terms of how my degree has helped the community, um, by working with this organization, I came across, and I learned about, the root, I mean, the problems that our community face, like, which I didn't know. Like, there's so many legal issues. There are so many members of our community that do not know, like, the things which I never thought they would know. And it's not their fault, because they are never told. Like, these are the legal things, which as a lawyer I used to think, oh, like, probably people would know it. But there are
Yes.
so many things, like so many small things, which would make a big difference in people's life, and they don't know about it. Such as for our women, like, many people think family violence is only physical, physically
Yes.
being
It's not
violent.
that. Yes.
In fact, it's not.
It's not.
So yeah, so now what I do is I create awareness about it. I used to, our community is very close, and we are very connected, and we have a lot of gatherings. So whenever I would go to the gatherings, I would, casually talk about it, what family violence is, that this country has a lot of resources available for victims of family violence. So now I'm doing that through my work, and also through publicly talking about it, and kind of creating as much awareness as I can, for the vulnerable members of the community, especially women.
Ameena, what about people understanding the language? Is that an issue?
Yes, that is actually one of the main issues. Communication and language is a big issue. My own mother, she understands English, but she can't speak English. Um, there are other community members who can understand English to a level of just, doing the day-to-day communication, but not to the level where they would understand a proper session or a proper lecture. So I try to do it in our own language. Just yesterday, I had a session with one of the cultural associations, where I was talking about family violence in Dari, so that a larger member of our community can understand it and,
Yes.
benefited from it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um, So this week, from today till the 24th of October, is the week without violence. What do you have to say about family violence? I mean, I know we talk about it all the time. What kind of message are you giving the community? What are you telling the men? What are you telling the women? Because it's a mindset, isn't it? That it is something that we just, because it has been happening for years, women will not talk about it. They just think it is the acceptable thing, but that's not true.
No, no, that's not true. Just from memory, a while ago, I had read it somewhere. Don't quote me on it, but I had read it somewhere that it says it takes years for a woman to speak up. I think it was 10 years or something like that. I forgot the exact amount of years, but the statistics show that it takes years of suffering for a woman to seek help. And also, women, it's not just that women are victim of family violence. Men can also be victim of family
Absolutely,
violence.
yes. The ratio is just different. Yes,
Yes, it's just that women have a lot more vulnerability factors.
yes,
Usually, women are dependent for financial reasons on their husband. So that gives kind of a power imbalance. So that creates a power imbalance and makes a woman kind of, vulnerable. Or woman goes through pregnancy or through other, like, life circumstances. So women have comparatively more vulnerability factors as compared to men. My message to anyone who suffers from violence, family violence, is to not stay quiet, seek help. The sooner you do, the better it is for you and for your children. And also know that violence is not just physical violence. Violence can be emotional, it can be psychologically, it can be financial controlling, it's any action that makes you feel fearful for your safety or intimidates you. So you don't have to wait for your partner to come and, physically assault you. You don't have to wait for that. If you are feeling intimidated, seek help. And unfortunately, due to COVID, I was just reading the other day in the news that Victoria has seen the highest rate of family violence in its entire history. And Victoria Police has recorded something
yes.
88,000 calls about family
Yep.
violence.
So they respond to a family violence case every 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's just skyrocketing. And this, unfortunately, quarantine has played a big role in that. And there are so many support services. Usually, victims of family violence cannot seek help because the perpetrator is near them.
Yes,
Seek help through your GP or through your, like, if you meet a friend, like by giving hints or by, like, other alternative means. Think of other alternative means of seeking help. And also there are these services for men. There is an organization called Men's Referral Services. So they help men with their, they help men improve their habits and, help them in avoiding violence. Like, they have a lot of services. There are other organizations, Safe Steps, which can help, women or any other person who runs away from violence and needs emergency accommodation. There are community legal centers such as our community legal center, other Peninsula Community Legal Center, Fitzroy. Like, there are a list of community legal centers that have free lawyer services, which people can ask, call them and ask and inquire about it. Yeah, so
thank you. So for people, say from the Afghan community who seek help, is there uh, interpreter service for them to?
interpret. So just by working with court systems and all that, so if someone needs an interpreter, there are usually interpreters available. The court makes arrangements. There are sorry, there are interpreter services. Our organization, we do, if a client needs interpreter, we do give interpretation services, like through professional interpreters. So I think it depends on each organization. I can't speak for other organizations, but each is different. Like I'm sure probably they would have some sort of arrangement.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so, what message do you have for the community, especially young girls who come from a similar background to yours? What would you like to tell them?
Oh,
I
my
mean, I
man.
told you I'm in awe of what, from Afghanistan, Pakistan, leaving home at 12, staying away from parents, then going to South Korea, then, coming here and starting life all over again. Couldn't have been easy.
No, it was a very difficult journey. And as I said earlier, sometimes when I reflect back on it, I think how I did that. But it made me stronger. The more, I mean, those circumstances. Now that I think back, I went through all this and I excelled in those circumstances. I'm like, I can do anything. It made me stronger. My message to anyone, from culturally or linguistically diverse background, or any other person who goes through difficult circumstances in their life, my message would be to don't give up, be persistent, be resilient, work hard, and it will pay off. It will eventually pay off. So when we came to Australia, as I said, we were like, it was a big shock for me. It was personally a big shock for me, leaving behind everything. Like, never I had thought that, I would be settling here, leaving behind everything and just coming to a country and like in a day you're like, this is where you have to stay. So it was a big shock. And then when I started law degree by itself is very challenging.
And all
And
consuming, yes.
yeah, and then being new in a country, not knowing much about the country. So in 2 years, and then came the difficult part of job hunting. In 2 years, I applied for over 200 jobs and I didn't get even one. I went, so one day I sat, not one day, few days actually, I sat behind my laptop and I made list of all law firms, suburb by suburb, in the southeast, like Pakenham, Narre Dandenong, all these areas, Noble up to Noble Park. So I made list of all law firms. I went to each and every law firm. I made like a bunch of copies of my CV. I went to each and every law firm, hand delivered my resume for volunteer work. None of them gave me any opportunity. There were times where I would, break, like, I would say, like, no, I can't do it. But then I would reflect back on my journey as a child. I was like, if I could do that, I can do this. This is not going to last long. I have to be persistent. So if I tell people that, stay positive and everything is going to work, that's true. But realistically speaking, there will be times where you will completely lose hope. And that's normal. Even if you lose hope, but gain it back, self motivate yourself, reflect back on the hurdles that you have overcome and gain the motivation to gain that push, like, give yourself that push, and you will rise up even stronger. Like, they say rise from the ashes. That's what happens. You rise up, like, and you get even more determined, you get even more motivated. And that's what I did. Like, and I still do. Every time I feel down, I'm like, I did this, I can do this. And then I become even more stronger. So coming back to my journey, so didn't get jobs, went to knocked like on every door of the law firm, called them, didn't get. And then I came across Mary and Kate through piecemeals. So I got introduced to them, and Mary introduced. So Mary used to work in this law firm, Lander and Rogers. So
And I think she still works there. Yes.
She still works there, and they are the most humble people I have come across.
I agree.
Great bunch of people. So I started working as a temporary admin assistant there, and then eventually my tenure was extended, and I ended up working there for a long time, and that's when my actual, job started. And then that was like, a stepping stone for me, and then from there I started building up on it. So yeah, just don't give up. Yes, you will face days where you will be very down, and that's very normal, but don't give up. Just keep going, and you will reach your goal. For some, it's harder than others.
Yes.
Like for me, just the basic, like, many people in here, like, they just go to school. Like, some people underestimate it. Like, school is just there and like they just walk it. For me, in order to be able to acquire education or to be able to learn English, I had to pay the cost of leaving my family, moving to a country, staying away from them at the time when I needed them the most. So yeah, for everyone's journey is different. Some is harder and some is easier.
And you've got it. Look what you're doing now.
Yes,
You know,
and I couldn't be more happier. Like I'm working with in this amazing organization with a very inclusive team and the best team, like a great bunch of people. Everyone, like, all of them. Yeah.
and on a good note, you met your husband at Peace Meals.
Yes, my husband also belongs to, he has a legal background. He has also, he's also kind of lawyer. He's not practicing law. He's from a legal background, but he's working with the government. Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, before we end, do you want to add anything else? Do you want to say something? I mean, yours has been the most incredible journey. I knew some of it. I did not know the whole of it. But wow, Ameena, just wow. More
Thank
power to you. We need more girls like you.
Thank you,
You.
Sana. Thank you. Thanks. I'm sure there are more girls. We just need to motivate them more to come up, to come and talk about their experiences and, give them that extra push that they need. For me, I was lucky that I had very supportive parents who took the hard decisions, but supported us all the way, to acquire education and to give back to the community. Well, I think I said I pretty much said a lot. So my
It was
message
amazing. Yes,
is, yeah, just work hard, be persistent, be resilient. It will pay off one day.
it will. I'm
Yeah,
sure it has. Yes, persistence and resilience.
yeah,
Two words.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Ameena. It has been an absolute pleasure. And as I said,
Thank
more
you.
power to you.
Thank you, Farha. Thanks for having me. It was an honor
Oh,
to be here with you
no,
and
it's been my
share
pleasure.
my journey.
It has been amazing.
Thank
And I will share it with Mary and Kate. I'm guessing Kate is watching this program. Hello, Kate, if you're watching this program. And thank you.
you.
Because of you, I think I could meet Ameena at one of the dinners at the Sudanese restaurant in
Yeah,
Footscray. Yes, yes.
yeah, put it well. Yeah.
That's all for tonight. Thank you all for watching. Stay well, stay safe, and have a good night. Bye,
Thank
Ameena.
Bye. Bye, Salha. Thank you.
Bye.